Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Webcam Sessions. Today we're going to be talking about something that came up in the Ukulele Underground Plus lesson that I gave yesterday. And during our kind of Q&A portion of that, somebody asked, what's the number one thing that people ask as a question for ukulele lessons? You know, like what's the number one thing that people feel like they need to work on or whatever else? And the answer to that question is kind of fun because there's really two parts to it. It's one concept, and that's how to hold the ukulele, right? This instrument is so awkward to hold, seemingly for everybody. A lot of people feel like they need to wear a strap to hold it correctly, and then you wonder, should I be wearing a strap? Should I not? And so we're going to talk about that today. What we're going to start with, though, is our fretting hand and how it should actually support the ukulele. So a lot of times people are taught that they should always have their thumb behind and squared on the neck, something like this, where whatever chord you're playing, you should always have your thumb behind, right? Whether it be a bar chord or moving up the neck or whatever else. And, you know, this is one way that you want to be able to fret. Keeping the thumb squared behind is going to make the finger contact angle a little bit easier for some chords, especially for bar chords. Anytime you're playing a bar chord, you really do want your thumb up here, or rather down here. But the other style of playing is having the thumb kind of up and over the neck. And a lot of people think that this is a very bad way of playing in terms of it's a bad habit that needs to be broken. This is really common for people playing like a G chord, for instance, where they actually finger the G and their thumb is sticking way out here, and from behind, they're kind of cupping the ukulele in their hand. And a lot of people then say, oh, this is bad, and you shouldn't do it this way. But in my experience, the truth is that you want to be able to play both ways and not necessarily think about which one of the two ways you're using, meaning they should both be comfortable, and chords should be able mostly be played either way. So we're going to look at a couple examples here to really kind of showcase how this works. So let's start with the second part that I was just looking at. Let's start with the cupping motion, kind of the cradling with the thumb. And let's first talk about how it's done. Essentially, what I'm doing here is when I'm trying to hold the ukulele up and play, it's very difficult to maintain pressure across the strings with my thumb squared back and then switch chords and not have the uke drop. So the easiest way to prohibit this is to take this knuckleball on your index finger and have the neck of the ukulele actually sit in that knuckleball. And when it does this, my thumb kind of comes up over the top and just lightly touches the neck like so. And my fingers now are going to kind of move into position. And you'll see that as I do that, the knuckleball goes up to this little divot area with the headstock. And with the G chord, for instance, it ends up being a very comfortable way to hold. You can see from these variety of angles that my thumb is kind of pinching over the top. There's a space there. And the part that's actually holding it up is going to be my hand and specifically that knuckle area. So for a G chord, for instance, this works really well, right? So if I'm playing my G, having that thumb there helps me hold up the ukulele. And let's say that I'm switching to a C chord. I'm going to just take that ring finger and move it down to the third fret of the A. I can leave those sort of points there to hold up the uke. And it's kind of like if any of you are fans of boating, you're told to have 3 points of contact on a boat so that you don't fall out. And that's kind of what we're doing here. You got a point here of contact, you got a point here of contact, and then whatever's fretting. And when you're not fretting, you have these 2 points that are kind of holding you into position. So that works out really well for when I'm switching between these two chords. But the problem really starts to come is something like a B flat chord, right? Now, a B flat chord, if I try to leave this knuckle here, there's no way I can get the angle to push correctly on the strings with my index finger. And that's a big problem because I have a lot of students that try to play with this kind of open hand form, and they try to bring their thumb more up and they try to cradle the uke more into their palm and try to push that way. And they end up getting, not a very good tone because it's just not efficient enough. And so as soon as you start doing a B flat chord or bar chords like this, it's really important to actually have your thumb go behind the neck. So what was like this, kind of those multiple points of contact, now needs to have the hand come forward. And as it comes forward, you'll notice that my wrist, which was kind of recessed in its bend, comes forward a little bit. We don't want it over so, but it comes forward a little bit. And now the thumb is right kind of in the middle side of the uke, holding it up. And it's okay for it to be at an angle. You'll see mine's angled out towards the headstock right now. Sometimes it might be angled differently, as we'll see in a moment. But you'll see that it's now holding this up. And when I play a B flat chord now, which I bar across the first fret on the E and A with my index, reach my middle finger over to the second fret of the C, and my ring finger over to the third fret of the G, now I can get a really good connection over those strings because my thumb is actually pressing up against the neck, right? So if I'm playing, let's go back to the C chord, for instance. Now when I'm switching to the C, it's harder to hold up the ukulele because of the thumb here. It doesn't hold it quite as well as the knuckleball does. But I can switch that ring finger out to the third fret for the C, get that C there, and I still have my thumb squared behind. And it works. And what's really cool about this is a G chord, for instance, can also be played with the thumb behind. If I'm playing my C with the thumb behind, my thumb's usually angled out towards the headstock this way. However, when I switch to a G chord, what you'll notice is I actually pivot along the thumb. And that's the big strength to this style, is your thumb can pivot and change your hand motion. And for a G chord, I'm going to pivot the thumb so that the thumb is sort of pointing towards my right shoulder, on my strumming shoulder. And I have these fingers then come down very articulately to get that each string pushed just the way that you want it. And you'll see that I'm still maintaining now with my thumb, and I'm no longer bracing with this area here. So the difference between playing a G chord this way and playing a G chord this way is no different in terms of how it sounds, but totally different based on where I'm going to or where I'm coming from. And this is where this kind of comes full circle a little bit. If I'm playing a chord progression where I'm playing like G and C, and then maybe from the C, I'm moving up the neck and doing maybe the same G shape up in different places, I'm going to want to have that knuckleball on the fretboard so that I can use it to facilitate movement down and up the neck. I actually have an original song that's called Crossing Hemispheres that I wrote around this kind of technique and concept. I'm going to play just a little bit of it for you right now so that you can see how much I'm depending on this part of my hand. And I'm going to try to move as I play it so that you can really see what it is I'm getting at here. So. Right, so as you see me sliding up, I really need to maintain that pressure there, because if I were to try to do that with my thumb squared behind, it's just too difficult to support the ukulele, and that just doesn't work very well. So in that song's example, I really need it here. Even though a G chord can be played either way, because of what I was playing, I wanted to play the G chord that way. But at the same time, maybe I'm playing something jazzier. Maybe I'm doing something like from a Lyle Ritz book or something, where I'm using these seventh chords, bar chords, all the way up and down the neck. In that case, it's really helpful to have your thumb here. And you'll notice that the thumb is propping everything up and pivoting as it does it, because I need that clean angle with the fingers. If I tried to do this same sort of chord progression with my thumb up here, I just can't get the angle with these chords. I'll get buzzing and I'll get really inconsistent sounds. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. So it's really important as you're working on holding the ukulele to be able to do both of these methods and not necessarily think of it as like one school of thought and another school of thought, but think of them as two techniques that contribute to you being able to play all sorts of styles of music. I will routinely be playing a song where the first time I play the G chord, it's like this because I'll be going to another chord that I like to play with my thumb up. And then later in the song, I'll play the G chord like this because I'm moving up to another chord where I actually want that thumb to pivot instead of just slide. So be sure to try it with all the different songs and chord progressions that you're playing to see which one is better for the situation. And don't think that you just have to use one way or the other. It's getting comfortable with both that's important. And to kind of summarize this with a strap too. I get a lot of questions of, should I use a strap? Is a strap a good idea to use? And I'll tell you, like, a strap is a tool that can be abused, basically. Should you never wear a strap? No, not necessarily. Should you always wear a strap? No, not necessarily. It kind of depends on you and what you're trying to do. To give an example here, one of my favorite students is an elderly man who is killing it with some John King fingerpicking stuff. He's only been playing for about 4 years with our lessons. And, he's never played a musical instrument before. And he's playing a concert-size oud where he's actually doing this, right? This John King style playing with this campanella style. Crazy stuff, right? And to do this on a smaller ukulele, when it's your first instrument and you're, in your 70s, it's a lot to do to try to hold the uke, get all that. So we decided early on to put a strap on and make sure that he was playing with that strap so that way we could have the strap allow him to get good position, get good fretting angles, get good picking angles, and he could focus on playing the music. Is that a negative thing for, the future? Well, if he's wanting to then start strumming, he's going to have to learn to play without a strap, but it helped facilitated him to become very accomplished with this style of music, I think much more quickly than if you weren't using a strap. So that's just an example where a strap I think is totally okay. What I recommend is trying to practice with and without a strap. Practice standing and sitting. Try to do as much as you can because the more ways you can play something, the better you'll be as a player. I'll tell you that I got a strap button on here because you'll never see me perform without a strap. But at the same time, you'll never see me never see me perform without a strap, but you'll never see me teach with a strap. It just kind of depends on what's happening. And so try with and without a strap, but don't feel like a strap is this big stigma that you just have to, go without. So excellent. Well, be sure to check out next week. We'll have another episode of this. I'm really excited about this series. There's so many different things that come up in lessons seemingly every week. I started making a list while I was teaching this last week, and the list is already quite long. If you ever have any questions and ideas for these types of things, though, there's no such thing as too many ideas. So feel free to check out my website, mattukulele.com. Use the contact page there. Shoot me a message, and maybe what you're struggling with could be a concept for one of these lessons moving forward. Thanks so much, and I'll hope to talk to you guys soon. Bye.